everyone. Good evening. This is the Wizard's Den. I'd like to begin with a piece called Faith and Belief. Faith versus Belief. This has been always kind of a problem, I feel, and it's always, I'm going to kind of do something different here I haven't done. I'm going to actually read from my writings. These are my magical and mystical writings and essays and treatises that I had written some years back that I have mentioned in other videos, one particular other video. And I am going to try to share this piece called Faith versus Belief, which was written in the form of an epistle. It was written like in the form of a letter, and honestly, it was never delivered to the man. I had full intentions of doing so, and then just kind of, I don't know, it just never happened. But it was actually written to a gentleman that I was kind of a friend of mine at church. He was actually my history teacher at Glendale. Anyway, and so it's written in that way. The piece begins as a letter, and so kind of in that classic form of First Corinthians and things like that, Second Timothy, all those letters from Paul and all that in the New Testament. So kind of the same kind of spirit and spirit of that type of work, to try to make some sort of theological point. So this is called Faith versus Belief. These writings, like I said, they were, not to get into why they're titled what they are. A lot of people ask me, where did you get this stuff, Jim? Why is it titled what it is, and all this kind of stuff. I could get into some of that stuff later, but the book is entitled "The Dragon's Path." Is the overall title, but the subtitle, or the original title, you might say, before I kind of just dubbed it "The Dragon's Path," which also goes with an album which I'm going to be releasing this year, of some old homespun recordings and things that I'd done. That was all in this kind of type of. It's kind of a concept album that's based on this stuff, and anyway, the name of this book, as you'll see, I've actually put up. Is which I guess you probably won't be able to see it in that video because it'll be backwards. But you can see these on my Facebook page. I have pictures of them. A few snapshots of this book. It's called The Mystical Writings of Melodiazic Melodius, the Bard 999, Alamasio Moshai, the Star 1487. So I know that's a mouthful. That's the name. That's the title of the book. And I'll say it again: The Mystical Writings of Melodiazic Melodius, the Bard 999, Alamasio Moshai, the Star 1487. And there's an Enneagram on the front with a icon that I kind of created. My own little icon. It's based upon my sun and moon sign. Which is Scorpio and Sagittarius. My sun is in Sagittarius, and my moon is in Scorpio. And I have a Gemini rising. So anyway, we won't get into all that. That chemistry and why that makes me a bit of a philosophic conundrum all in and of itself, or an astrological one at least. Yes. Anyway, here we go. This, like I said, this is something new. I'm not used to really doing it this way, by reading from my own writings here. I'm usually just rapping. So bear with me through this one. But this is something I feel like is extremely important, because if you keep these things separate, it allows you to grow instead of stay stagnant. And you understand that your faith is something different than your belief, and you don't confuse them together. And so your belief structure should be something that's kind of always changing to some degree. You might be pretty locked in on some things because you figure this is the years of the facts, folks. So your belief is based upon that. And for the most part, you probably are right. Very few people are that do the research, do the homework, and decide to get the correct answer, so to speak. But belief is there again. It's always based upon something that you know. It's based upon a because, a why. It's not really based upon the ineffable mystery. It's not based upon something that's intuitive, that you feel, that God is something you have to. You have to know God, and by knowing God, in having that the Gnostic experience, for lack of a better expression, I guess, having that awakening in yourself, then you realize that God is within you, and you are no longer separated, and so that is your faith. Your faith lies in that. It's not based in a belief of some history or something that you think, some definitive event that you think you believe happened, or because anyway, so this is the setup. I'll just let you know this is the setup, and this is a little bit of a rough intro to get this video going, but here we go. Okay, I'm gonna get hit real quick here. So, got a little Miles Davis playing in the background. I love my kind of blue at night. Makes me mellow and peaceful, and helps me concentrate and focus. So I will begin this. Now, the gentleman's name was Ron, so that's who I wrote this to, but you could fill in the blank with whoever. But it begins with Dear Brother Ron. Here we go. I am writing this little epistle to you in the form of a treatise on the difference between faith and belief. The reason I am doing so is not because I feel that you do not know the difference, but rather I feel it has always been a serious problem in the outer religious communities and churches of the world. And being led in the Spirit, I have come as a fiery messenger of truth regarding this crucial issue. In essence, it is an effort to establish correspondence with someone that I believe, I put it in italics, could sympathize with my point of view, and perhaps help others also see this ever-neglected problem. In my experience, I have found that faith and belief must be kept separate from each other, and that by misusing the expression of them and confusingly integrating them together, one only creates more real problems for themselves. Excuse me if I will sometimes I will kind of maybe I will be paraphrasing a little bit here or something, maybe just to kind of put it into my own words so I don't sound like him. But pretty much I'm reading off the page. Here's what I mean, is what I write. Most religious people base their faith on their belief system structure, and not an ineffable faith in God, the transcendent Father, an unknowable mystery. Let me start by defining, and I put my own opinion in words, but this is kind of really the Gnostic view of how faith and belief is supposed to be understood, and it's generally it's a Gnostic view. So I put in my own opinion in words, which it is my own opinion, and it is my own words, but I am also kind of elucidating a Gnostic perspective. So I'm defining the difference between faith and belief here. Belief is something that can be defined in terms of why, and quote, because, in turn being based on the individual's understanding or lack of understanding of the facts about the situation, issue, idea, person, or event. For example, I believe the Gospels to be a series of symbolisms and allegories relating the complex and venerable Gnostic Christian myth cycle. Because I have studied and read a vast amount of Christian and Gnostic literature, not to mention ancient myths of the world in general, and a lot of other books too, along with Tom Harper's Pagan Christ, and I could go on. I've read the Jesus Mystery series by Freaking Candy. I've read Massey, because Freaking Candy leads you to Massey and Kuhn, and I kind of that's a little bit of an understatement, is what I'm going to say. There again, as I said, I've read Campbell. I also understand Campbell and where he's coming from. Hero with 1,000 Myths and all these kind of things. Not to mention ancient myths of the world in general is what I write. So, the Greek myths, all those kind of things, Egyptians. And based upon my understanding of all this stuff, I choose to believe in a certain way. I'm like, hey, due to all this information, this is how I see it. This is how I have to render this. It only makes sense. And so that becomes your belief system. And I'm saying basically this is, I'm explaining this is how my belief system works in my own mind. Let me pick up here. Let me find where I left off here. However, as I write, this is why I believe in a certain way. I'm telling you, this is my belief system. But I say, however, I have faith in the ineffable mystery of God and the Christ Spirit in a way that is not based upon any of my beliefs. Belief is definable. It's finite. It's mutable. Meaning, it's changeable. It should be, at least. Faith is indefinable. It's infinite. It's absolute. And a lot of people probably say, well, what do you mean it's indefinable? Well, it's almost to the point of you can't really define what it is. You could say, well, it's kind of like God himself. Faith should be compared to God himself. You can say a lot of things kind of that point to it, but you can't really directly speak of it. You see what I'm saying? And the rabbis will speak about this, about the Bible, and how the Bible doesn't really, in Gnosticism in Kabbalah we don't really. There's nothing you can say directly about God. You can talk about God's power, God's immanence, God's, all these things, God's blessings, God's grace, you could talk about all these things, but these are just garments of God. They're not faith itself. I don't have faith just because I've experienced grace or something. That's part of it. I mean, it's you experience these things, and then you go, yes, they are affirmations to you, but they're not the reason you have faith. Having faith is something that is it's ineffable. It's supposed to be you can't put it into words. So it's kind of like God, the Godhead itself. It's almost like this kind of thing. It's transcendent. So I go on to say, I said, many people might say after hearing such a statement, you have no faith in Jesus, Jimmy. Why do you not believe that God sent his son to die for our sins? And I'll say, here we have the fundamental error of using the word faith and believe in the same sentence or the same, statement and question. In other words, because most people base their faith on a belief structure, their faith is merely an extension and byproduct of their belief structure, which is most of the time built up like a house of cards, with their faith being the roof, being up here, being the structure, and not the foundation. Here's another example. Some might say something like this: I have faith in God, because he sent his son to die for me, or something like that. Again, using the word faith and because, in other words, I have faith because of something, in the same sentence negates the quality of one's faith. It's watering it down, is what I'm trying to say. It's not true faith. Most people do not see this as an error. Okay, this is what I write. This brings me, now we're going to go down the rabbit hole. And I'm going to use some very interesting things, and you're going to go, holy crap, we're going to get into some real wizard stuff and some Gnostic stuff here. And to explain my point. Because you're like, well, Jim, that's not good enough. You can't just, just tell me that it's a base to, it's like that definition is maybe not good enough, or it maybe doesn't, at least, I don't know, it doesn't quite ring yet. But I want to show you how it does. This brings us now to the recently published, which when I wrote this was at this time it had been recently published, enigmatic Gospel of Judas, wherein it says, knowing that Judas was reflecting upon something that was exalted, Jesus said to him, step away from the others, and I shall tell you the mysteries of the kingdom. It is possible for you to reach it, but you will grieve a great deal. For someone else will replace you in order that the 12 disciples may again come to completion with their God. This is a profound statement, I write, showing that Judas is, according to Jesus, worthy, or perhaps merely more capable, of receiving the, quote, mysteries of the kingdom over the other, quote, 12. For later it states, quote, Jesus answered Judas and said, you will become the 13th, and you will be cursed by the other generations. You will come to rule over them. In the last days, they will curse your ascent to the holy generation. In these verses, along with many more in this gospel, lie critical clues in understanding the importance of the role Judas Iscariot, or Judas the betrayer, plays in the gospel narrative. And I will say, this is from my own study of this stuff. This is not stuff I've read, and I'm just kind of you might say, parroting, so to speak, someone else's work or something like this. This is actually my own work that I've went and studied, and these are my own assessments of this stuff. Yes, my treatise of my argument about faith and belief is a Gnostic conception of these things. But the work on Judas and explaining it through Judas, and this type of Gnostic view, Christian view, is completely my own. Now, I'm not sure, maybe other people that's, I'm not aware of that has, made these connections. I'm sure there have been, certainly by now. But, this stuff is really, like I said, it's very old and Gnostic, and, if you were, anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. So this is my own work, is what I'm trying to say. So I will say first, I will address the 12. Now, a lot of this stuff is just Gnostic doctrine. Now, I'm just conveying Gnostic doctrine, about how to view the Gospels. Okay, so no, I'm not making this stuff up. This is not my own work in that way, but this whole piece is my own argument, you might say. So I say, first I will address the 12. The, quote, 12 disciples are what is known in Gnostic doctrine. See, there I wrote it. I didn't even have to say all that. I try to be clear. Generally, I try to be, explicit. Is what is known in Gnostic doctrine as eidolon figures, coming from the Greek word meaning image or appearance. they represent the 12 constellations. Okay, folks? Or zodiac signs. That the sun, appearing from the earth, of course, passes through on its annual journey. According to the, I put quote journey, meaning that, obviously the sun doesn't move anywhere, right? But it looks like it's moving. It looks like it's going on a journey. At least from its appearance, from the earth. According to the ancient Gnostic Christian view, the, quote, 12 were also the archonic forces of the cosmos ruled by the demiurge, the false god of the material world or world of appearances. Or, as the Gospel of Judas puts it, their god. Judas, as one of the original 12, symbolizes the constellation of Scorpio. For this is the time of year when the sun is preparing to die and be reborn at the winter solstice, and is betrayed, so to speak, or suffers by the sting of the scorpion. However, Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss, and this alludes to what Judas, is to eventually become. There is also another constellation in the night sky at this same time of year that lies between, so to speak, Scorpio and Sagittarius. It is known as Serpens, or Serapis. Serapis, or Serapis, as pronounced. And within, it is known as, and within Serpens is a set of stars called, excuse me, I made a mistake here, no. Ophiuchus, excuse me. So, between Scorpio and Sagittarius, I was sorry, I got a little bumbled with my words here. So between Scorpio and Sagittarius, Serapis is a different thing. I believe is a Syrian deity or something. I can't remember. Serapis is another thing. I believe it was another part of another mythology. What we have here is a new set of stars called Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. This is the true identity of Judas after his, quote, ascent, or transformation to the holy generation. So once the pieces are put together, one realizes that Judas betrays Jesus with what is known as the serpent's kiss. In the occult, we would call that the serpent's kiss. Am I getting too far out there, right? I hope not. For please allow me to continue interpreting a bit more, and I shall show you how this all relates to the faith-belief issue. I will cut this video here. This is part 1. There will be a part 2 video so that we keep this shorter in segments. So this is already going on like 24 minutes. And I kind of bumbled the ending there a little bit. So with introducing Ophiuchus. So I apologize about that. Anyway, here's this video about this, and I will, there will be part 2. So, signing off from the Wizard's Den, to be continued.